Shelton Herald, the Stratford Star, the Milford Mirror, and the Valley Gazette.
Hersam Acorn and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in southwestern Connecticut.
Isn't that great music? Good morning from the Drive. We're live at 1000 Bridgeport Ave here in Shelton with our new studio, and I hear from my friends at Hersam that we're going to have even a better studio next week. My friend Rob is out today, our station manager, and we're here with Josh Fisher and my fabulous guest, Randy Weiss of the R.D. Weiss Companies, and I have to say a friend as well. Welcome, Randy.
Thank you, Denise. It's great to be here on a Friday morning, and after the show, I can start my weekend.
Yeah, we're off after. Okay, good. Well, we're not going to make it quick though, because we had a slightly late start here because we're investing in our live stream and our radio show. So we had a couple extra setup things as we bring new equipment on. So the Drive, Randy, you know a little bit about it. It's how we move ourselves forward mindfully, and how we fuel our mind, body, spirit, creates our lifestyle. Yeah. And you have an incredible story, an incredible journey, and we align in so many of our beliefs about work and work ethic. So I'm so honored that you joined us today.
It's great to be here.
I want you to tell everybody a little bit about your company, but more so about your background and where you started. Take us back, because we know you're a very successful entrepreneur, and we're going to get there. But I want to hear about, so the audience knows a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, I grew up in the Midwest in a typical middle-class community, household, family of 5, living in a small house with 1 bathroom, typical for the 50s and 60s. And you know, as I've looked back on that journey and that time, I really realized what a gift it was to have that kind of what I'll call normal upbringing and lifestyle, and grew up in a family, you know, that had dinner together and all of those things that I think are very formative later on in life. So, yeah, I'm a Midwesterner by birth, and I've been on the East Coast for about 35 years. So. More time here than where I grew up.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you grew up, because where we kind of aligned, me coming from the Berkshires with the same sort of middle class, strong family work ethic, I too worked through all summer vacations and all holidays while all the kids were off at, you know, spring break in Florida or traveling around Europe. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we did talk about that the other day, and I want to correct you on one thing, Denise. I have never grown up. So, and I don't intend to grow up. So that's something that let's just get that out there. But I grew up, as we talked the other day, spending my summers on a family farm. There was no camp option. There was no backpacking in Europe option. There were none of these things that living in Fairfield County are so.
You weren't taking the jet to look at colleges?
Did not take a jet to look at colleges. I actually looked at colleges with one of my friends at the time in a 1964 Pontiac Le Mans, driving around looking at schools. I don't know what we were looking at, but we were judging them based on appearances. But my summers were spent, you know, getting up at 5 a.m., having breakfast, milking the cows, feeding the animals, working in the fields, you know, getting a bath two times a week. You know, it was a very, very different kind of upbringing. But
and certainly the lifestyle that we live today here in Fairfield County, very different.
Very different. But again, I feel that it was a blessing, not a curse, to have that kind of that lifestyle, and you know, great memories abound from that time period.
Well, I grew up in a family business, as you know, and it was the automotive industry, so I was pumping gas on the weekends with my grandmother, a very unusual thing for a lady to say now that lives in Fairfield County. People look at me like, what? Are you for real? But I think so many of those character building things are pushed aside nowadays. And I know we were talking about this as you hire employees for your company,
yes,
and you're trying to develop a work ethic that, you know, resounds when you're not there, what you look for in people that you actually hire. And I don't want to get off the track of where I'm going with this. So now you're a Midwestern guy. You moved to Connecticut with your family. And I think you had a a corporate job with, I forget the name of the firm. It doesn't matter.
I work for a large pharmaceutical company. Let's
Okay.
just leave it there.
Let's leave it there. So you get let go for whatever the reason is. I mean, that happens all the time, downsizing, reorg, and you start your own business. And of course, I, having many businesses myself, are very interested in this because people often ask, how is it that you do all that you do? So go. How is it that you do all that you do, and what inspired you to start your firm and keep it going? I mean, it's 25 years old this year.
Yes, it is. We just celebrated 25 years. It's been a great experience, a great run. And I had less time in corporate America, and that time really helped me build a foundation that allowed me to start a company and launch it and keep it going for 25 years. I think if I'd come out of college and said I want to be an entrepreneur and I didn't have the work experience, I would have probably failed right out of the box. So I am grateful for my corporate experience because it allowed me to move my business in a different direction. And for those listeners that are looking at some kind of career transition, I don't mind saying I was not downsized. It wasn't a reorganization.
You bolted?
I was let go. It was sort of a mutual thing, but as I look back and in my exit interview, I said to my superiors that the problem was I thought I was there to lead, and they wanted me to follow. And following is what permeates corporate America today, and it's really tough that leaders just can't find the right opportunities to lead.
There's a lot of talk about having an entrepreneurial spirit and ownership within corporations, and that's another whole separate show where you can be on a panel. But what I want to ask you about, and in my newsletter that I sent out to my fans, was success isn't always driven by what's on your W-2.
Correct.
And we had a really great talk before coming on about that. Tell me, because I want everyone else to hear your view on that. What drives success, and where are we kidding ourselves when it comes to our W-2, and what does that do to our self-esteem when we kid ourselves about our W-2? What's success?
Well, there's a bunch of questions in that question, so let me try and pick them apart. The reason I said success is not related to your W-2 is that it excludes a lot of very important people in the world. I believe that being a role model for your family, your friends, your coworkers is far more impactful and is far more important than the size of one's W-2. Many people have heard the story about on your tombstone when you pass on, no one wants their inscription to read that I wish I'd worked a little bit harder.
Right, or spent one more minute at the office.
Exactly. It's all about the other things we do in life, and it is easy, especially in a community like Fairfield County where, we've got such a wide, diverse population. It's very easy to see that person driving the Ferrari down the highway and being envious and say, he must be really successful.
Right.
Well, I think we all know, especially at my stage in the game, that the person behind the wheel of that fancy sports car could be a miserable human being. Mm-hmm. And
with so much debt they can't see straight.
Well, that's true.
Perhaps,
also.
Maybe not.
That's true also. So, yeah, I've learned, and I think we go through stages in life. When you're in your 20s, you're very much in that accumulating stage, accumulating things, and being envious of others, and then you sort of get in the middle and you start coasting a little bit, and then as you're getting closer to the end of your work career, your value system starts shifting. And the value system is no longer on things, it's on people and the next generation, what your legacy is going to be, how you want to be.
Memories,
all that stuff.
Yeah, I was listening to something else on actually YouTube where we're live streaming today that said, we tell our kids, to do all this great work, but in the reality, when they get through college or high school, we almost shun them from taking any job that isn't a high-paying job, such as maybe a school teacher or a police officer. But those roles in our society are equally as important, but we don't quite put the right value on them, especially here maybe in our county. Well, I just hit a loaded gun there with that statement.
Well, that's that W-2 thing again.
Yeah. That is that W-2 thing. So we had talked about productivity, and the Daily Drive is all about that. And the book came out of someone asking me, how is it you juggle all that you do? And I said, well, I do this active meditation. It's my method of keeping it all together and calibrating it. That's how I start my productivity every day. Tell me about yours.
Well, I think we all should have some system of scorekeeping and some system of staying organized. And the Daily Drive, for someone who does not have a system in place today, is a great place to start. We've used the Daily Drive in our company, as you know. And,
Thank you, Randy.
And my wife is an advocate, and I've attended many of your talks. For me, it's a little bit differently. You know, I am in business, and Outlook is a great calendaring system for me, and I use it daily. I start my day every day with a to-do list. I get out of bed. I spend 15 to 20 minutes sort of getting my bearings on the day. It's quiet time. No one's up in the house. And, I start sorting through what needs to be done today, next week, next month, et cetera. And I think part of that also comes from, years ago I read Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Right.
And in that book, it talks a lot about doing things that are important, urgent, and things that need to be done but don't have a timeline. Mm-hmm. So I try and organize my life kind of around that Covey triangle, to be honest.
Now, is that also how you set goals for, I'm assuming for personal, but for your professional life, moving your business forward? Are you using that same system, and are you encouraging your senior staff to do that as well? Like, because you've really grown a firm pretty substantially over the past 25 years without, I'm assuming, huge venture funding capital like so many people are, doing their Kickstarter campaigns today.
Well, there was never any venture funding capital. It was, there was never any other people's money. It was mine. But I think the person who is in the leadership role in the company, they need to be looking further ahead than the people who are doing the day in, day out work. Mm-hmm. You don't want your, people in accounting who are processing invoices or doing whatever they do, thinking about what's the company going to look like in 5 years. You want them they're boots on the ground, and you want them thinking about today's activities, next week's activities. The farther up you are in the leadership channel, your thought process should be getting farther out. If I, as the owner of the company, am in the weeds every day, dealing with problems, then the company's in trouble.
Yeah. That's also, I think, one of the most challenging things for me, because I tend to be a boots on the ground lady and also responsible for the vision, and I'm always juggling, i.e. the reason for me using my own book, because I like that camaraderie on the ground level. I like that, and I feel like, well, my grandmother, who used to always say, you cannot be a success until you make others a success. And that's even the reason for my show. It's because it's not all about me. I bring on really great people like you to tell their story, to motivate people to move forward. I think we often get stuck in our own way, and we think, success is unattainable because somebody else in that Ferrari has it. But it is real life success. So now you've got your regular people, and I shouldn't say regular people because they're equally as important as the people up the food chain. How do you teach them and keep it, because you're a very calm personality, but I know you have a lot going on. How do you get it out there and teach them so they can move forward as a leader?
Well, I don't think there's just one thing. There's never just one thing that makes something happen in business or in your personal life. For me, it's about staying connected. It's about, just before we got on the show, I learned that I had an employee who had somebody significant in their life have a medical emergency this morning. Oh. So prior to the show, I connected with that person 2 or 3 times to make sure everything was okay. Mm-hmm. Is there anything I can do to help? So I think staying connected. I think, when I'm in the office, I have lunch with my staff. I don't eat in my office. I want to make sure that I'm available physically, mentally, etc., as much as possible. My door is open, not closed. I don't have the largest office. My office is centrally located so that when people walk by, they can feel free to come and go. So for me, how do you pass on leadership? It's by modeling, frankly.
So on that note, I'm getting a little signal from my friend Josh that we have to take a quick break. I like the fact that Randy isn't one of those scary CEOs, and we're going to talk more about what inspires him when we get back after break. Thanks, Randy.
Okay.
Want a new experience in car buying? Scap Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram with one of the largest inventories of new 2- and 4-door Wranglers. We are Connecticut's Wrangler headquarters. Come visit our new Ram Truck Center. Browse our websites, scapchryslerjeep.com or scapdodge.net to find the new Jeep, Chrysler Dodge car, minivan, or Ram truck you've been looking for. Just 2 miles from both I-95 or the Merritt Parkway exit 44. Save thousands at the award season event, now through April 30th.
Breaks, sprains, injuries, and pain can now be quickly and expertly treated at Coastal Ortho Express in Norwalk. Why wait hours in the ER? Save a trip and save money going straight to an orthopedic specialist at Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, 203-845-2070. No appointment necessary. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday in the iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk, or call 203-845-2070. Fast!
Healthy, confident smiles begin at Stratford Orthodontics. Conveniently located on Main Street, we are Stratford's hometown orthodontist. We offer the latest in orthodontic technology, including Damon braces and Invisalign. We always accept new patients. Call today to schedule a complimentary consultation. 203-375-8332. Stratford Orthodontics, 2499 Main Street, Stratford. 203-375-8332 and online at stratfordsmile.com.
Alliance. We are an industry leader in coordinating transportation for large events such as corporate roadshows, conferences, and special events. Our team of experts understands the dynamics and logistics of high-pressure situations and complex arrangements, all within a rapidly changing environment. Since 1999, we have added charter jets, event management, and personal protection to our range of services. Mention this ad for $25 off your next round-trip reservation. Alliance and you. Together, we can achieve the extraordinary. 855-546-6996 or alliancelimo.com.
Hersam Acorn and HANradio.com.
We're back, and I hear again from Josh. We have a caller. Caller, are you on the line? Hello?
Call. Hi, are you there?
I'm here. Who's calling?
Mary Elizabeth.
Hi, Mary
I'm
Elizabeth.
from Westport. Hi.
Welcome. Welcome to the drive. I'm assuming you've been listening and you might want to chime in on the convo.
I do. I wanted to call in and talk about a recent epiphany that I had listening to what Randy was saying. For me, what I realized recently is that most of the time I'm in this state of partial attention, where I'm either multitasking or I'm paying attention to like that one thing that's right in front of me while also letting in all kinds of input from all sorts of other places. And what I've realized is that the best thing that I can do for myself and for the other people in my life is to really, shift my attention to one thing at a time.
That's your productivity. That's a piece of it.
That is something that has really contributed to a lot more peace of mind and my ability to actually, achieve my goals has been really impacted when I make the decision just not to be multitasking.
So you got to tell us a little bit about yourself now. Do you own a company? Are you a working mom? What's going on? So the leaders can leaders, we're all leaders, so the listeners can kind of pin it together.
I am a business owner, and I work as a visual artist in my business, and I'm frequently on deadlines. And I'm also the mother of two kids, two kind of quirky kids who require a lot of attention from me. And so frequently I am, using a variety of both left and right brain skills, and most of the time I'm not, pausing to consider what I'm doing. And I too have also been using the daily drive. And
oh, so you're a daily driver. Cool.
I'm a daily driver, and I'm finding that when I pay more attention to my intention with an I, things are just so much better for me. I'm less stressed. I can be more productive.
Do you have a question for Randy, or do you want to chime in on his feeling about success isn't related necessarily to your W-2?
Well, I love I loved what he was saying about, sitting at the stoplight and looking over at the person in the Porsche. And I think, on a near daily basis, all of us are looking around and thinking that the person at the red light next to us has life completely buttoned up. And, the reality is, we're all human. We're all making mistakes. Those are just outward appearances. And, when you really scratch the surface and ask that person a probing question, you find out that they're struggling with things too.
Like my grandmother, I keep saying my grandmother, boy, I'm going to bring her back around. She would say, you know what, the grass isn't necessarily greener, Denise, because you've got to mow that grass too. Right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for calling in and for your comments. Randy, you want to chime in with anything before we say thanks to Mary Elizabeth for calling in?
Well, I think Mary Elizabeth's challenge with the multitasking and dealing with the life we do is a challenge we all have. And it sounds like she recognizes what needs to be done and is moving in that direction. So I commend her for that. And good luck with those quirky kids.
And thanks for taking time out of a busy day to do some good listening for yourself and taking the time to call us and tell us what you think. I really appreciate it. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon, hopefully next week maybe. Randy, tell me about the most important day in your life in the course of, from working summers on the farms to right now.
Well, I can't give you a single day, but I'll give you a couple of important days.
Okay.
I think the day your first child is born is an amazing time for you. It changes the game. It changes how responsible you need to be. It makes you
tired.
It makes you tired. And you've now got a new job where there's no rule book for. I mean, there's no parenting book. You've got to just figure it out on your own.
My mother used to say that. She'd say, this is the hardest job in the world, Denise, and you did not come with a book. I don't know what that says about me, but go ahead.
Absolutely. That was a very significant day. A significant day also for me was when I graduated from college, and I put myself through school. I worked and went to school at night. And
well, don't skate that, because that's an important thing. You put yourself through school. I mean, nobody in Fairfield County does that anymore, do they?
Yeah, we don't have enough time to talk about my views on that on this show, but yeah, I think it can be done. I think it's BS that, kids can't manage two things at once as I did. But yeah, it gave me a great sense of accomplishment. I didn't think about it when I was going through the process, working during the day, leaving home at 6:30, getting home at 10:30 at night, having school in between. It didn't occur to me the magnitude of what I was doing until I did it, and my parents acknowledged what an incredible feat it was, because I believe they felt when I took on school and work that I would never be able to complete it because it would just be too daunting. But that was a significant event. And then a third event, and I don't know if my wife is listening or not, is when we first met. It was really sort of a life-altering time. I was not in the best form of my life, and I'd gone through a lot of personal change, and she was there in a very supportive, non-judgmental way.
You have a
And
fabulous wife,
Thank
Peggy.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We have to give it up for Peggy West.
So I guess I'd have to say I don't have one singular one, but I have three that always come back to me as significant.
Yeah, and those kind of things are what sort of stay etched in your mind, and they also offer, a source of motivation. So from your greatest days, is there a greatest lesson you want to share? Because you're talking very much about how to build a life and be proud of it no matter what stage it's in. And so sometimes I feel like people get stuck with what I call things in the trunk, right? Past disappointments, daily annoyances, really bad memories, and it holds them back. And so from those, instead of letting them hold you back and be sort of the nasty fuel that doesn't move you forward, I always think about things that have been sort of the lessons that have always moved me forward. So I kind of try to reframe them and look at them differently. Any greatest lessons you want to share that you kind of did that flip on for yourself?
Well, I think, the phrase never say never always sticks in my mind, that so many people say, I'm never going to do this. There was a time in my life I said, I'll never live on the East Coast. I'll never work in New York. It's too crazy. It's too this or it's too that. And here I am, 35 years, in the Northeast. So, but I could go through many, many examples where at one stage in your life you say, this is never going to happen. That's never going to happen to me.
Right.
So that's a real dangerous mental path to get on.
And sometimes there's dangers in planning too far out, right? It's not only never say never, because careful what you wish for or that you say never to, but tell me about the dangers of maybe forecasting too far out. We're into all these productivity, move it forward mindfully things, which I think are incredibly important nowadays, but what about the dangers?
Well, I think one of the big dangers is that when you're too far out, things can happen that upset your plan.
Yeah.
And then you're in great personal disarray. There is something to be said about living life a little bit one day at a time, with an eye towards the future. But if you bank too much on that future plan, you could really have problems. For example, in 2003 and 4, no one was thinking, as they entered perhaps retirement, that there was going to be a meltdown of the economy.
For sure.
And if they had their mindset on a specific date that they were going to retire or go do something else, chances are it didn't happen for a lot of people. So if all of their energy was spent thinking about the day they retire and not living the life they want to lead up to that point in time, they're in an emotional crisis. I talked to a cab driver just the other day, and everyone I'm sure on the call knows who Uber is.
Yeah, Uber.
We never heard of Uber 2 years ago.
Right.
You talked to a yellow cab company in New York City today about what impact Uber has had on their business, the value of their business, and it is significantly impacting the cab business. Medallions have dropped in value over 70%.
Really?
Many people who own those medallions, they put them up as collateral to buy homes, finance additional businesses. And, for many, many, many years, probably 50 years, you could buy a medallion and just count on it going up in value. Uber changed the game.
I think that change is, we're talking about change agent, thought leadership, insightful living on purpose. The reality is balance, if there is such a thing, is a constant state of motion. And to your point about living dangerously in the future, I think if you don't make a plan, you plan to fail. And I think it's different for everyone else. And that's also what I talked about in my email out to my fans. It's like you said, and what I really liked is success is different for everybody, but it's also different for everybody at different stages. And it's okay to change what your vision of success is. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I'm at that, I don't know what quadrant in life I'm at yet because I don't know.
Well, you haven't grown up, so we're going to assume the first quadrant.
If we all knew when we were going to die, it'd be really easy to plan life, but we don't. I think, the stage I'm in now is really about helping people who are close to me, whether it's friends, whether it's coworkers, family members, grandchildren. My role now is more teaching, inspiring, motivating, all of those things. I have the other stuff in life that I want. So now I want to make sure other people get out of life what they want.
You're helping others be a success. And on that note, we have to take yet another break. We take a break here every 15 minutes, right, Josh? More or less?
Roughly, Denise.
Okay.
It's
Josh,
your drive. It's your drive.
You did a great job, Josh, by the way.
I'm just trying to keep quiet and stay out of the way.
No, you can jump in. We're happy to have you.
I don't want to ruin the good conversation that you two are
Not
having.
at all. We always welcome feedback. But we'll be back in 1 minute, and we're going to talk about Randy describing what that success looks like, why you are inspiring others, because you're certainly an inspiration to me and have been so connected in our community, and I want to talk about that a little bit when we come back.
Great.
Did you know that taking dance lessons is a great date night idea? Arthur Murray Grand Ballroom of Greenwich is a fabulous place to learn to dance and meet new people. Located at 6 Lewis Street, our studio is staffed with professional instructors ready to teach you salsa, waltz, rumba, hustle, tango. There's a dance for every season, and we are rated #1 on the Knot.com. We are the wedding dance specialists. Take advantage of our new student offer, only $49. Call 203-769-1800. Visit us online at arthurmurraygreenwich.com.
This year, 3,000 Connecticut women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. Hersam Acorn is a proud sponsor of the Komen Connecticut Race for the Cure. Help make an impact in the local fight against breast cancer by joining us on May 9th in Westport at Sherwood Island. With your help, Komen Connecticut invests in local breast cancer programs, helping local women beat breast cancer. Visit KomenCT.org to register, volunteer, or donate today. We race for Connecticut. Why will you race?
Does advertising on HANradio.com work? Just ask Coastal Orthopedics. They ran spots with us, and within 24 hours they had 21 walk-ins and 8 calls to their new immediate care center. To advertise on HANradio.com, call 203-417-5199 and ask for Marianne Hersam.
You're listening to Hersam Acorn Radio.
You sure are, and we're back. It's The Drive with Denise DiGrigoli and my friend Randy Weiss of R.D. Weiss Companies and Josh Fisher. And all the guys behind the scenes here, I have to say, are always so fabulous.
Oh, they are. Eric Gendron and John Kovach and Kate Chaplinsky's helping with the phones, and Don Eng's back there, and, of course, Marty Hersam.
I have to say, since I started, just a few months ago, these guys have been great hand holders, and they're wonderful in our community as well. 15 papers wide. I'm not going to name them all, and I always get in trouble for saying Hersam incorrectly.
Yes, there's only one H in it, yes. You're getting better, though.
Each week I get a little bit better.
Everyone struggles with that name.
And these guys do so much for our community as well as Randy. So, Randy, you and I met. I think we were on the board, or you were the chairman of the board for the Fairfield Arts Council, and I actually met you through your fabulous wife, Peggy, who's an incredible artist.
Thank you.
Really, she's an incredible person, but also an extremely talented artist.
I agree.
So tell me about some of your charitable work and things that you're doing that you're passionate about in helping others, and what it means to you and how other people should do. I'm giving you a lot of questions. Sure. I'll shut up.
Well, since you brought up the Fairfield Arts Council, I'll talk a minute about my involvement with that and why I got involved. As I said, I've lived on the East Coast 35 years. I've been a commuter my whole life. That means I leave my house at 6:30 in the morning and get home whenever I get home. And other than the person that runs the dry cleaners, most people in town wouldn't know me because I'm working outside of the community a lot. So a number of years ago, I said, I've really got to do something to give back to the community and be more involved in the community. And I've never had any desires to get involved in politics, so I eliminated that as an option. So I was looking for something to do, and one evening at a arts gala, it could have been at Troy Fine Art for all I know, a woman who was leaving the board of the Fairfield Arts Council asked me to join, and I was thrilled to do that, both on the basis of doing something great for the community, but also doing something in the arts, because that's the world my wife Peggy lives in. So it was something that we could do together very, very easily. So that one was very much driven by a feeling that I needed to do something in my community. Where I spend my time today in charity work is with an organization called the Pajama Program.
And I think we have that link on live, the link to the Pajama Program for everyone.
It is a fantastic organization. It's about 12 years old. Without too much of a advertisement for them, it started with one woman, Genevieve Paturo, and an idea that too many children, orphans specifically in the United States, were going to bed at night without pajamas at all, and without a book to read.
Mm-hmm.
And books and pajamas have been so important in her formative years that she just couldn't imagine. She couldn't imagine what it would be like for a kid to not have those things. So she had an epiphany. I think you said epiphany earlier somewhere. She had an epiphany that her calling in life was no longer to work on Wall Street, but to quit her job and start a nonprofit to make sure that every needy child had pajamas and books.
It is an incredible organization because the night I listened to her talk, she actually said that when she first started it, a little girl declined taking pajamas because she didn't even know what they were.
Yeah.
Wow, that was mind-boggling.
Terribly sad story. But today the organization it's national. They have done some overseas pursuits when soldiers in Afghanistan and Iraq got in touch with her and said, "There's children, who are war victims that are without pajamas and books. Is there anything you can do?" They were shipping books and pajamas overseas. So it's a non-political organization completely, highly supported by the folks at Carter's Baby Clothes and Scholastic Books. They're the two major sponsors.
Wow.
I'm now on the board after many years of just being a good supporter and volunteer.
But tell the story of how R.D. Weiss took their vans down to Louisiana after Hurricane Katrina with loads of books and pajamas. I mean, too bad we don't have your video on that here, but tell that story because that is an incredibly motivating story.
Well, people that know me well know that I like to do things without a lot of external involvement. In other words, I'm kind of a boots on the ground, let's get it done person. While watching TV one night and seeing what was going on in New Orleans, I texted Genevieve, who is the executive director of the Pajama Program, and said, "Are you watching TV?" She texted me back. She said, "No, what's up?" I texted her back and I said, "Look at what's going on in New Orleans. We, collective we, need to do something." So the next morning, 8 a.m., we started a conversation. One of her best friends in life growing up was Meredith Vieira, who was on
the Today Show.
Thank you. And within 48 hours, Genevieve was on the Today Show. The Wall Street Journal ran the ad that this organization existed, and we were trying to gather pajamas for Katrina victims.
Right.
So we had the idea, but there was a whole bunch of things like where the pajamas are going to go, how we're going to get them down to New Orleans and all that. So we volunteered our warehouse, our company, and our trucks, and we said, you get the pajamas to us. We'll sort them out by size, by sex. We'll figure all that out, and we'll load the trucks, and I'll send my people down to New Orleans.
So you basically almost, put a little bit of a work stop in your company to bring these pajamas in your trucks with your employees down there, which wasn't like a 2-hour trip. I mean, it was a few days.
Yeah, it was a few days. But one of the things that happened during that trip that was particularly memorable and shows the goodness in people is our truck broke down along the way, and it was on a weekend. And my driver called and said, we're not going to be able to get this part until Monday, until the truck dealership opens up. And I said, that's not good enough. We got to figure out a way. I called the local police and I said, who owns this trucking company? I need to talk to the owner. And they were hesitant to give that out. And I explained what it was. I said, I've got a truckload of pajamas heading to, actually it was the Houston Astrodome, which is where a lot of the victims went. And Monday's not going to work. And the police officer in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Got in touch with the owner of the company on a weekend. He called me, and I said, you have a part that I need, and I need to get it put on. I told him what it was for. He personally went over. He opened up his repair shop. He called a mechanic in who was out for the day. They fixed the truck, and we were on the way.
What a story. And we hear so many things that aren't positive nowadays that, again, the reason for the drive is to bring these stories to light because humanity is, for the most part, pretty good.
It is.
And when your intention and your energy is positive, I think you attract that.
Yeah, sadly, we tend to focus on the stories that go badly, but there are so many stories every day that are great stories. It's what I sometimes dislike about the national media. The focus is very, very negative. Not enough positive stories.
Right, and so that's why we do this every Friday, right, Josh?
That's right, Denise.
So, Randy, now what do your employees think of this, and how you're clearly role modeling for them? And do you find them like naturally picking up on it, or do you have to make it a case study and use it as a vehicle for teaching? How are you spreading that good within your own organization? Because then I'm assuming these people are doing it in their personal lives as well. So you're kind of spreading the good exponentially.
Well, everyone does it their own way. There's no mandate. I mean, there's no requirement in my company that you have to be charitable or you have to, even be good outside of work. But there are a lot of examples of people in our company that I feel have embraced giving back, whether it's in professional organizations we belong to. A lot of my employees sit on boards of various types. And, we support that. We pay them to go to their events. We pay their airfare if they've got to go somewhere to do something for either the industry we're in or, if it's a pursuit like the pajama program. I mean, we paid all of our people that drove to Houston.
For a few days.
We paid them just like they were at work and fed them and all that good stuff. It's the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do. So when you are doing all of these great things and such a positive person, you inevitably come up against people that maybe are, we don't want to say naysayers, not so positive, negative Nancys. What do you do and how do you role model that for your family to kind of move them out of the trunk or not let them, because sometimes I almost feel like when you're doing so many positive things, when you get the negative schmooze, you're like super schmoozed, at least for me. And it's like, how do you get it? What do you do?
Well, in business, it's easy, and it's easier when you own the company.
When you sign the front of the check?
When you have somebody who's truly not on board, I don't like to use the word fire people, but I like to liberate people. You need to liberate them so that they can go do something that's going to truly make them happy.
That's a word that I think my husband Troy would use, right? Not fire, but liberate them.
If that's possible. And look, we all have toxic people in our lives, and we don't have the skills to turn everyone around. So I think you do your best and try and get them on board. And if they're truly toxic, you just have to put them in the closet and close the door and put a lock on it and move on.
I often do that, but sometimes it helps me to almost, I actually kind of visualize them moving away from me and sort of releasing them that way. But I'm going to now visualize them being liberated. I like the word liberate. Liberate them to move on and use their energy elsewhere.
Absolutely.
So if you have any advice to share, I'm not on break yet, am I, Josh? You're looking at me like I have to take yet another break.
Keep going, Denise.
Yeah, I have to keep going. We're on the right road right now. Wait, I'm getting some kind of crazy tweet. Oh, okay. Well, this is the question I was going to ask. Randy, what's your next piece of advice for somebody who's got a really strong background in what they do, but they're looking to evolve and move forward, and they feel almost a little bit, they're very good at what they do, but they're moving on, and they need to do it without throwing out the baby with the bathwater? How do you do that when you've been doing something great for so many years?
Well, I think you have to have one foot in the past where you're at today, and slowly get that foot into the future and not make that leap. So it's a gradual step as opposed to a leap. Most people who are in a job where they have income and they have resources, you want to hold on to that until you're 100% sure about, the new venture that you're moving towards.
So don't give up your day job?
Don't give up your day job. Well said. And the other thing I think along the line, and you and I have done this many, many times, I think it's really helpful to stay in the talk stage before you leap with others. Bounce your ideas off of people of like-mindedness or people that think very differently. You want to get as many opinions as you can before you make that leap.
I feel like that is a very important piece of advice. I also know that sometimes I'm a little squeamish about talking about the change and transitions that I'm going through, because I feel like if I hear too much advice, I'm flogged and I might not make the best decision based on my true intuition. And so I find myself sometimes talking maybe too much and maybe listening too much, and then I kind of disconnect. Any advice on that? Because I'm sure many people that listen to this show are in change. They are into personal development and enrichment, so they're constantly in a growth mode, or so they want to be.
Well, listening is a skill that people don't talk much about, and it is a skill that most all of us need to do a better job of. I once worked with a person who had very little to say in meetings. He would sit back, and he was always taking things in. And sometimes people would ask him a question, and he would take a very uncomfortable length of time to answer the question. He later told me he was the master of the pause. Oh. But what he was saying is, when you blurt something out or you go with the first thing that comes to your mind, many times you've got to rewind, and that's not good. So, I'm in meetings all the time, and I can tell you who the listeners are and who the ones who are just in the moment are.
Troy will say that to me all the time. Denise, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Amen.
But my dad always called me the telephone operator, so I'm in trouble. I don't know. We're not taking a break just yet. I want to know what's next for you, Randy. Where are you headed next in your intentions?
So before I answer that question, I learned that our good friend Josh here is also a native of Ohio.
That's right.
And Josh and I would like to do a shout out to all the good folks of Southern Ohio, Cincinnati Reds fans, Skyline Chili fans, all that kind of good stuff.
You are?
All that. Oh, definitely. Yes.
Did you grow up there?
Yeah. I was born in Washington State, but I moved there when I was 2. And,
oh, my gosh.
Yes.
And when did you come here?
I came here in late middle school, but certainly kept the ties back there. I was last out there a couple years ago. Finally got to go to the new ballpark out there. And
but did you guys figure that out on break?
We did.
Yes,
oh,
yes.
We did.
All these great secrets.
Yeah, and Randy was a neighbor of Joe Nuxall, the old left-hander, youngest man to ever play Major League Baseball. Played when he was 15 years old, and then was the Reds' color man on radio for decades and decades, and passed away a couple years ago. But one of the kindest men you'll ever meet in the world.
Wow.
Great human being.
You know, the resounding theme that I'm finding out about my guests that have been on, you and Ro last week and a few others, you all know so many people and so many great people. There's so many. I mean, we could have a show based on that story alone, but now we do need to take a break.
Denise, why don't we run us to 5 till, and we'll play the commercials out.
Oh, okay. Run us to 5 till. Very good. Well, that's
Okay.
what we get to do when we do it informally around here. Tell me about what's next for you, your intentions.
Well, life doesn't really let us always know exactly what's next, but I can tell you that I gave you a book this morning, by the way.
Yes, you did.
The first book I've been involved in writing a chapter in, and it was for a friend who's in the retail and restaurant industry, totally unrelated to what we're talking about this morning or what I do. But the book was about leadership. I want to stay on that path. I'm teeing up now to write a chapter in another book coming up that I've been asked to write. Whatever my next act is, and I won't say my final act, but my next act, I'm hoping is something that's more consultative and sharing my business and life experiences with others.
The drive is about writing things down because as a person in the creative industries, the biggest thing I believe in is, of course, I mind map before my guests come on, and you have your written down goals. Long before we spoke, we were cave people doodling on walls with berries. So I won't ask you to share those unless you want to, but what I'm most impressed with is that Randy, our CEO, has these fabulous little goals tucked in his wallet, written down. And I know they're both personal and professional because you did share them with me. I want to ask you, I work with Troy, as you know, in a variety of our businesses. How is it working with Peggy? Because Peggy's also a very creative person, and so are you. But tell me about the management of the two of you working together and keeping it interdependent.
Interdependence is a great word, and we both we're dependent on each other in the areas that are really important. We're dependent as moral support for each other. We're intertwined, of course, financially and other things. But we both live our own lives as well. We live a interdependent life as well as dependent life. Our long-term goals are very, very closely aligned because most of our goals at this stage are around family. They're around each other, they're around our children, our grandchildren, and people we love and care about.
You guys are great role models, and I know that personally, but share with our audience, because we talked a lot about this the other night, about what we can do as parents and people in society to be role models to children, to develop a strong work ethic so that they do live more mindfully. So it's more an inclusive lifestyle, not a personally driven agenda lifestyle.
Well, again, we go back to that Fairfield County thing we were talking about earlier, and there are many opportunities that get missed when you live in an area like ours.
He's kicking us off.
Oh, okay.
That's right. You got some time. That's your Oscar playoff music.
I think honestly, we have to do what is sometimes uncomfortable or non-traditional with our kids.
Or not what's the most popular thing that every other parent is doing, perhaps.
So why isn't your teenager cutting your grass? Why is the lawn service doing it?
Right. I always tell Ava, you know what? You're fortunate to be the only one, but it doesn't mean you're not responsible. And someday you will be glad that I made you earn a little extra money for your ski program. Right?
Amen.
Yes. All right. It's The Drive with Denise DiGrigoli or DiGrigoli, depending on how you want to say it, and my friend Randy Weiss of R.D. Weiss Companies, Josh Fisher, and all my friends at Hersam. I will see you next Friday, and remember to tune in and call in. Thanks again.
Thank you, guys.
Hersam Acorn and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in southwestern Connecticut.